Okay, hey everybody. This is my first recording, so please bear with me. Smile, everybody. But what I'm going to be reviewing is hopefully a quick but comprehensive Express review, right? We spent the last 5 days building a full app, and hopefully I can condense 5 days into 60 minutes. So this will be my challenge to myself. Okay, so most of this will be a screen share since I'll be coding along. I don't recommend coding along for you guys. Just kind of watch and see if my words make sense. Feel free to stop me at any point if it doesn't. All right, I did this for you guys. I want you to be almost crystal clear about like the terms and the concepts we're using, okay? So here we go. All right, so right, we created this huge monster, and it seems like the main question is like, wait, but what is Node? What is Express? Which are totally legitimate questions. So you know what? My favorite thing is Google. I literally Googled what is Node, and it brought this up. And you know, I know we keep saying like, for the intents and purposes of this class, you don't need to know beyond, you know, this. It is true, there's a lot that we're not uncovering. We keep saying under the hood because there's a lot of stuff going behind this. But just a quick definition, I only want to spend like a minute on what is Node, what is Express. So Node is an open source, meaning many people can contribute to this, like it's open to the public. Cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment, and this is your keyword. If you're like, I don't know what a runtime environment is, go ahead and like check it out. There's a lot of terminology in here. If you want to delve that deep into this rabbit hole, go ahead. But for now, just know it's an environment. It's not a language. It's not a framework. It is an environment in which we will write our framework in, if you can conceptualize that. So I guess you could think of it as like a skeleton, right? It's just a pile of bones, but you know, the bones can't do anything without, I guess, if I'm going to continue this analogy, with the muscles, with the meat, with the skin, and so forth and so on. For developing a diverse variety of tools and applications. And although Node.js is not a JavaScript framework, so that's another buzzword we throw around, Node is not a JavaScript framework. Many of its basic modules are written in JavaScript, right? That's why it's the .js, as you know. All our files ending in .js is a JavaScript file. And developers can write new modules in JavaScript. And a little fun fact, I guess everyone knows this, or you should, I guess, if you're going to go interview as well. The runtime environment interprets JavaScript using Google's V8 JavaScript engine. So man, or Google is just an all-powerful thing. Okay, so that's what Node.js is. It's a runtime environment. Don't think much beyond that. Oh, but if you want some context, it's cool. Like, why are we learning this? Well, corporate users of Node.js software include GoDaddy, Groupon, IBM, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Netflix, all these guys. So we're actually learning a very relevant technology and a very, I would say, like lightweight and easy way to make apps. Okay? So no, it's not just some side thing. No, it's a very popular way to write a website, and there are multiple ways. So like in Unit 4, for example, we're going to abandon JavaScript, and we're going to be building apps on Ruby on Rails. So Ruby being the language, just like JavaScript, and Rails being our framework, in this case, just like Express. So that's a good transition to Express. So we have this thing called Node. We play around with it in the terminal. And again, it's just an environment, right? We are able to run Node scripts on the terminal. How does it know that? Well, that's how it's programmed to be. You can run JavaScript in this environment. So Express now is what we're using as our framework. Now this is where the term framework will come into play. I don't know how to use my body analogy, because it's also the skeleton, but maybe with the ligaments attached, so it's not, you actually get a structure of the bones. Does that make sense? So this gives the actual structure of our app. Again, it's minimalist, right? Well, I guess you don't have context to see how more complicated other frameworks can be. But with Node, we use things like npm package, npm install, to download little modules or packages of Node libraries. But again, Express, you know, what is a framework, right? We know Express is a framework, but what is it? Okay, sure, I Google it. Like these, you know, spend an hour, go ask questions to the internet. There's so many cool answers out there. But a JavaScript framework is a web application framework written in JavaScript, and it differs from a JavaScript library. Some famous examples of a JavaScript framework with an MVC, again, another buzzword, architecture are AngularJS, which is what we're going to be using, and Ember.js. Also framework, or Ajax framework, whatever, all these things. But again, Express is one of many frameworks available for Node. And it uses this MVC thing. And I won't go too deep into this, but we played around with this model view controller concept. Why? Because our app includes like a views folder, and what we learned today, a controls folder. And then next week, once we start with databases, we're gonna have model, right? Because our data has to have some form of structure themselves. You can't just throw whatever you want in a database. It has to follow a specific scheme, and that'll be another term we'll look into later. So right now, Express is our framework, and moving on to next unit, we'll be working with Angular as our front-end framework as well. And this will all be using Express, which is built on top of Node. Cool? All right, so even if that sounds a little gibberish, just if you want to get more clarification or really understand what is it, maybe in terms of code, look it up. All right, so what I'm going to demonstrate is how to build an Express app from scratch. And hopefully this will help you guys. I'll make this bigger so you guys can see this. All right, so I am on my root directory. I'm going to cd into my desktop, and I'm going to create a new file. Oh. Okay, now we can cd to the desktop. And I'm going to make a new thing called, let's call this Express Review. Make sure you always cd into this, right? We have a lot of issues where people accidentally touch the files, and that's why our folder systems are always messed up, because we forget to like go inside of it. But all right, I have a directory. We're inside of it, and what I'm going to do with our Node app is, since we have Node installed, all we're going to do is initialize it. Init means initialize, right? I mean, here we just tell you just press enter, 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 enter. Yeah, just go ahead and do that. We're going to be making so many that, you know, if you want to go back, you always can. Is this okay? Just press enter here as well. Cool. So what we have right now, if I ls, all I have in my directory is a package.json. Okay, ooh, we've seen that 70 times. You know what, let's open it. Okie dokes. I'll try to keep this organized too. I know organizing the space is very hard, especially on a tiny screen and like looking back and forth. Okay, so we have this package.json file. So when we npm init, it will download this package.json file. And again, .json is the extension name, right? So like our JavaScript files end with .js, which is JavaScript. This is a JSON, and we're gonna come to that next week. But all that is, it's an object. Literally, JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. Oh my gosh, it's not as scary as you think it is. So here we go, it comes. Now, if you were to like open up Atom and you don't see package.json, then debugging tip, make sure you actually install npm by initializing it. Okay, so our first file we're gonna touch for our, oh no. Is our server. Again, you can name this whatever you want. I like calling it server because then I know of all the multiple JavaScripts, this is where all my server stuff will be, all right? If you want to call it index.js, go at it. If you want to call it, I don't know, caterpillar.js, call it. Just know then on your package.json, our main is actually not index.js. We can change it here. we want it to run. And always save your file, always, always, always. And I just close it so I know I have saved it. All right, so we have this server.json, I'm sorry, .js, nothing in it, that's totally cool.
Are we always supposed to do that in the JSON? If we're, like, for instance, when we're working with our recipe stuff, we call our main page server?
Yeah, I would call it,
server?
Yeah, I would just call it like good practice, best practice. Again, for what we use this for is like when we run Node, right? We want it to tell to go to server.js, but we install this awesome thing called Nodemon. And if you don't type anything in, what Nodemon's gonna do is look here and run this file. So actually, yeah, all right.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I'm running Nodemon and it's running and there's nothing going on my server, so nothing's happening. It's just waiting for something to happen. So at least we know Nodemon's working. We know our server.js file set up properly and our package.json is good. All right, so these are like baby steps to building it. All right, so I'm gonna close this, start Control C. So what we're gonna do is, since we wanna make an Express app, npm node package manager, we're going to just download libraries offline, right? We earlier said that Node is an open source environment, so all these coders all over the world are constantly building up new libraries to save time for you and me so we don't have to, oh man, code thousands and thousands of lines. We just use it and build our own apps with it. So the first thing I want to do is install Express. So again, --save. This will save it onto your computer versus like just using it for the instance that it's running. Don't forget to save. A lot of times you'll have issues where it may say like, oh, Morgan isn't downloaded or cannot find body parser. Then just go ahead and just type npm install --save, especially if you're pulling it from like existing code versus building it up like we are. Because since we're building it from the ground up, we're going to want to declare what we're downloading. So this should all be familiar to you at this point. We're going to download Express. And little nifty trick is you can download multiple libraries at once. So you know what? I'm going to download Morgan. You know what? Let's download body parser. Do you guys remember what else we download? Parser.
HBS.
HBS. And you know what? That's good. Let's start with that. So I put it all in one line, and oops. Oh, I misspelled body parser. Another fun shortcut is if you press Option and you click, it'll take you there. So you don't have to like use your back mouse or back arrow the whole time. Okay, I think I spelled everything right now. So again, being able to read error messages, 404s. Okay, cool. So it looks like something happened. Let's double check it though. You never want to assume like things are done and you move on. You always want to work step by step. So again, if you look at our package.json, we can see under dependencies, body parser, express, HBS, and Morgan got downloaded. Cool. We got it. Cool. So I'm going to close package.json because I don't really need this anymore. I have my main server.js set up here. And I have my dependencies listed for now. And if we build more stuff, then you'll see this. I mean, like in a few weeks, this list will like come down to here. Like it's gonna get crazy, I'm telling you. So I'm gonna close that. And now this is our lonely server.js file. And man, right, we've already been through so much, but here we go. You can definitely use starter code to reference. I am a fan of typing things out just so that my fingers get practice and it helps me to visualize or quickly identify issues, right? Because if you're so used to typing it, you'll be like, oh, there's a semicolon missing here. Now I know. Okay, so this might be a little bit different than when you see. I like being organized. I get, my code gets so messy, it's so hard for me to find where anything is, and it's a waste of time. So I copy pasted this. I have some starter code, but I mean, you literally just type it out. Okay, so my requirements. The first thing I want to do is set up our requirements. You know, if it helps you to number my steps, here we go. The first thing I do is set up my requirements. So by doing this, first thing I want to do is let's declare Express. Sure, if you want to make it pretty and line it all up, let's do that too. So here we go. Require is a node, I'm sorry, an express, I'm sorry, a node method, and it's saying pull the whole program express. That's all you have to worry about there. Next, we also downloaded HBS, right? So, okay, we want to look pretty, that's fine. HBS is Handlebars, so we're going to require HBS too. So this is kind of like importing these libraries into our actual file, because right now they're not really doing anything. They're just floating out around in our code, but we're actually now cementing it to our app. We also downloaded Morgan. So, you know, like your brain would think Morgan, but you know what? Just so that we're all using the same syntax, let's just call it logger, and that'll be a best practice term as well. And I'll explain what each of these do to make sense. And you know what? We download body parser, so yeah, let's require. We're not going to take care of that right now, but like I just like installing everything ahead of time and requiring at the beginning, so I'm not like, wait, why isn't body parser working? Oh, forgot to declare it. Oh man. Okay. So those are requirements for now. We'll do method override when it comes, but that'll go here too, right? Method override. Okay, cool. So I have my requirements. The next part I'm going to do now. Oh, you know what? We're missing one thing. Let's declare our port, right? We're building our server. It needs to connect to something. So port is going to equal, what do we have it set up to? Process.end.port. This will come in later for when we actually deploy this online, because 3000 is just a local port. This is only on your machine. So everyone accessing 3000 has a totally different thing depending on your own machine. And I forgot one super, super important thing. We can't make this app work without, without our Express app. It's actually not that big of a deal. I'm just recalling Express over here, and I'm just going to save it as app. Again, this is just convention, so get used to app right there. What it is we're just using Express, which is already declared here. Okay, now we can move on. Oh my gosh, so much setup. There's still a lot more. So the next thing we're going to do is actually I'm going to set up our listeners. Right, so it's nothing if we can't really see it online. So our listeners is, here we go, app.listen. Again, app is always referring to our Express framework here. So anything with dot, these are all Express methods. .list, .get, .use, all that stuff is Express. So we're going to app.list port. Again, port comes from up here. We declared either 3000 or a special place where we put the port number, which right now is nothing, so it will automatically go to 3000. That's why it works. And app.listen, guys, if you see a typo, call me out on it. You know that's our #1 reason for getting errors. It takes 2 parameters. You don't have to memorize this. Just, actually, yeah, memorize it. And once it does, I just console log. You know what? I am super visual. You know, maybe I could just console log. Like, there's so much code, I have to see what I'm dealing with. And I'll say, listening to port 3000. Random strings. Oh my gosh, okay. And I'm OCD, let's make this the same length. Okay, let's save this, and I think it should be able to run at this point. It should just say listening to port 3000. That's all we have so far set up. Note it on. Oh, yep. Syntax equals, this is a string. And you know what, I'll show you how to read these error messages too. It's not as scary as you think it is. Oh my gosh, I hate double quotes, but whatever. Okay, I press save, it automatically reloads. Let me go up to my first error though, because I'm getting error after error. And I think you may know why. But okay, as soon as you get an error, syntax error, it tells you immediately it's a syntax error. That means, oh, parentheses, colon, quote, something's missing, and I found out, oh yeah, I'm passing the string. Cool, so as soon as I save that, now I get another error. And I've seen this error a lot, right? We were talking about this. Error, cannot find module body parser. First thing I do is check package.json, it's there, but I know why. I know why this isn't working. This is not how it's called, right? We downloaded body-parser, so you want to require it the same way. I'm going to save, and it restarts on its own. Woo! My server is up and running. So now what do I do? Okay. Let's check it out. It's saying it's up and running at port 3000, so I go to 3000. Perfect. As long as I'm not getting, maybe let's go to another port, 3001. Okay, if you're getting this error, like cannot be reached, cannot connect, that's your hint saying, okay, it's not online, right? We get this message when like we can't connect to the internet or when the site is down, it's because the server's off. So it's good that we don't get this error. All we're getting is this cannot get, and we'll get through that. No worries, but at least we're online. Cool. Any questions so far? Does this setup make sense right now and how we're building this? Okay. Are we good with what Node is, what Express is, and how we're slowly going to build up the next step? Okay, cool. All right, so we're not done setting up our server, unfortunately. There's quite a long way to go. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my middlewares. Again, order matters, so you want your middlewares to be before, and I'll put this here. I'll probably set our controllers, which we learned today, and I'll explain what these are. But middlewares, this is the stuff that happens between the request and response cycle. So what we've used right now are, I'm going to type this out. Okay, so we have this thing called HBS, right? We didn't go over like what alternatives are. There are lots of other ways to view data on the page, but we're using this library called Handlebars. So again, like this is just the syntax. It's in all our apps right now. But if you want me to comment this is Handlebars. And feel free to leave comments so that you know exactly what you're dealing with. This is your code. It'll also help everyone else. You know what? We also downloaded this thing called Morgan. We don't really know what that is, but I'll show you. It's really awesome. And we call this our logger. And again, just refer to your notes for the syntax if you need to know. Next, we also have body parser. I like kind of setting up my whole server before I go and build versus like going back and adding this stuff. I'd rather set it up all right. So I'm going to include body parser, which is body parser.url encoded. Do I know what this means? No. You can look it up if you really want to know. And we're going to include, for now that's fine. I'm going to just note here, right, we have a public folder. We dabbled on that one day, and also we're going to incorporate method override here. This will be for put, which is basically the edit stuff. We need this. Okay. Your edit stuff won't work without this, but I won't put that in now. Okay, so I set up my middlewares. Cool. I'm going to save, no errors, right? Every time I save, it checks for it. So just constantly save, see if we get any errors. But we're in a good place. Okay, now we're going to get to our controllers. This is where the fun stuff happens. Okay, so I'm going to start with a simple get. Okay, we're going to get the root directory. Now, let me write this here. This is our root directory. I want you to get used to all these terms. What is root? Root is everything at the start. So like, for example, facebook.com. This is the root directory. If I go to like facebook.com/users, the root is still facebook.com, and then we add another route to it. So this is the root, right? Because we could still access facebook.com without the slash, but like if we're programmers, we know that the slash means root. And then if we add a route to it, then it's slash users or whatever slash anything. So for now, we're just going to add a root directory. So because we're not working off like a host or anything or a domain, we're working off this. 3000 is the same as that, and that is our root directory. That's why, and it'll go away, that's fine, as long as you know it's by default. But if I go to 3000, now let's try to make sense of all this stuff going on here. See if the puzzle pieces are connecting. We're saying cannot get slash. Now don't freak out. I don't know why people like just freak out. Oh my God, let me Google this. What's happening? Okay, don't worry. This is simply telling, we're sending a request, right? As soon as we press enter, we're sending a request to the server, okay? But it's saying, wait a minute, I tried to talk to the server, but I don't see this route at all. I don't see this route, and I don't see this route, or which is the root route. We can confirm this by checking our console. This is what Morgan does. Without Morgan, right, all this stuff here, we're not getting anything. With Morgan, it tells us what's incoming. So this is kind of our server-side console. All your console logs on your server is going to go to your terminal. And once you go to front end or working with our views, all your console logs on the front end will console on our browser, right? This is the front end. The browser is the front end. But you know, we're not getting the same console because they're in different places. So it's a matter of like knowing, where do I look? Oh my gosh, I got this error. What do I do? What do I do now? Cool. First thing I do is make sure we're getting that same error. 404 means not found, okay? And you'll probably see a lot of errors. I think Mark posted that really funny cat error page, and it's so funny. Anyway, 404 means not found. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But we are getting a GET request from our front side, our client. Client is the same thing as front side, to our back end, which is our server. And hopefully by now it's because, oh yeah, we didn't build that route. All right, okay, now we can move on. So I think your fingers have gotten used to this stuff. Req, res, I think we're all clear. Req is short for request. Req and res are just much shorter to write. And response is res. So we built out this function. This is your normal function. We're using JavaScript. And we're going to use this one other function that's built in called res.send. Okay, res.send, I guess you can kind of think of it like a console log, right? It doesn't really do anything. You're just able to see information, right? There's no functionality really. You just see it. So you know what? I'm gonna say hello. Save it. As soon as it saves, it automatically restarts. There's no more error messages. My port is still up. Perfect. Okay, that means I'm good. Cool. So if I go here and I refresh the page, I get hello. Whoa, cool. This is a website. Let's look back at terminal though. Do we see, okay, hey, I got a request from the client. It's a GET request at root directory and 200. That means, okay, that means it exists, it happened, it took this many seconds, whatever. It gives you a pretty cool log. And so that means we know that this route works. We're accessing the right route, and all our systems are communicating. We're all on the same page. Does this make sense? Like, do we know what Morgan does? Brad, I want you to tell me, what does Morgan do?
It gives you your error messages?
Yes, it does.
Sort of.
Yeah, it does. It actually does, right? 404 is an error, 200 is an error message, but it's a good error message. Yeah, but more importantly, Morgan logs, that's why it's called a logger. Morgan logs the activity happening between the request and response cycle. That's why it's called a middleware. It's telling me, oh, I got a GET request, and as soon as you get to post, or if you guys are practicing post, you'll see post here, you'll see delete here, and these are just the requests going to our server. So just remember, this is from the browser. From here, whatever activity you do here will get logged here. Logger, middleware, Morgan. That's all. You don't even have to think twice about Morgan anymore. It's awesome. Okie dokes. Now now comes the hairy stuff, right? We're like, okay, so we got that. So what we're gonna do is start building our first route, okay? And we say the word route. This is a route. This is a route. This is the root route. So you know what, I'll call this route, root route. But you know what, let's say I want, I don't know, food. If you get to know me, my life is all food, so it's a food route. So same syntax, right? But instead of root, we're gonna put food. Okay, same syntax, req, res. Again, I just like typing it out just to get more practice. You know, I'm gonna do the same thing. Let's send yum food. So Sanaz, I want to test this route. What do I do? How do I access it?
Slash after 3000 slash food.
Cool. So exactly, this is referring to what route we are accessing. So this should match, yeah. And now I think it's clicking, oh yeah, hey, I got a get for slash food. So that means it's saying, okay, let me look from line 1. Nope. Oh, here we go, slash food. And it's gonna do the stuff inside. Cool. Okay, I think this makes sense so far, right? I guess one more. You know what? Just to drive the point home. I think you guys get it, but if I were to do like foods, for example, I changed it ever so slightly. If I go to foods, oh wait, let's change this, otherwise I can't tell what the difference is. I go to slash foods, yay, foods. So now we know how routes work, right? So the last route that we were teaching was this like wildcard thing, right? Like we call this, I'm gonna call this food. I don't know. You know, let's call this like extra or something. Something, it could be named anything. And so what this is saying is if I go to like slash, I don't know, hamburger, it's going to give me this very last route because again, it's going to say, okay, let me go through server.js and let me look for this route slash hamburger. So it goes from the top all the way down. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. Okay, you know what? It totally fits here. So I'm going to stop here and execute this code. And that's why we see yum foods. And we can confirm that here, slash hamburger.access. That's why when we say order matters, if you put like hamburger here, I'm sorry, something here, and I go to hamburger, all I'm going to do is refresh the page. Oh yeah, no, that worked. So that's it behaved just like we want to, but if I go to slash food, it still also gives me yum foods because again, it reads top down. It's saying, nope, it's not root route, but oh, hey, you know what? Yep, it fits right here. So it stops here, right? Just like we know about JavaScript, it'll stop as soon as a condition is satisfied and it'll execute this code. It never had the chance to get to slash food, and which is what we want. So if you're like, I don't know why it's not hitting, check the order. Like, I literally pretend I'm the computer and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, here we go. This is why. Hey, no one watches me, so no one can call me crazy. It's all good. Okay, so any questions so far with routes? Do these different routes make sense at this point? Yes, Sanaz.
I have a question. So
yeah.
What does the clone do on line 39? You just said an example of hamburger, but when we use the clone, does the clone make the code kind of generic, or what does it do?
Oh, sure. So yeah, right now we don't really have an application, right? We don't have like a view associated with it. We're just sending a little message. But what this does is it's saying like, I kind of see it like as a net at the bottom of something. If this is the net, it'll catch it here and it'll actually help do something. If you don't have this stuff and like you're building a site and you go to like slash, I don't know, blah, it's gonna be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And then your site will just look broken. When instead, you know, if you created a condition for something to happen, maybe a real world example of this would be like maybe you want an error page if someone, so like we could say like error 404. And this is why you see error 404. If you're like, okay, I want to go to blah, 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 you could be like, oh, hey, sorry, dude, that page doesn't exist. So here you go, here's your error, right? Instead of just breaking. Yeah, so that's kind of what that does. Does that make sense? Cool. So yeah, if you think of why we get this, check out what this says. It's kind of cool. You'll start piecing the things together. Okie dokes. So man, we still got a ways to go. But at least we understand what routes are. And I'll do one more thing just to like add more complexity to these routes. We could add like maybe a food slash, right, I don't know, fruits here. So if we go to localhost foods, not food, right, it hits this route. If I go to localhost 3000 food slash fruits, again, it looks for that route and it'll hit it. And you can make this as big or as short as you want, okay? Hopefully not that big. Maybe that might be a little too much later. And similarly, actually, you know what? I'll leave that there. We're going to do something like, ooh, let's add this wildcard fruits. Oh my gosh, we're getting crazy right now. So you know what? Let's put this like, so we understand fruits. Ooh, that sounds yummy. Okay, I think you know what this will do now, right? Okay, if I put banana, it's gonna hit this last route, right? It doesn't hit fruits because it's like, okay, banana, fruits, it's not the same, move on to the next one. Here we go, this satisfies the condition. And this is where req.params comes in. Ah, that sounds so scary, hold on. Don't worry, it's not that big of a deal. So let's, I like saving variables. So let's call, you know, I hate using the same variable names. So if I call this fruits, it's gonna be way too confusing. So I'll call it my fruit. Yeah. And I'm gonna save this as req.params.id. Now this is wrong. I'm only gonna demonstrate why .id doesn't work here. So I'm at food, banana. I'm gonna restart my server. And, oh yeah, I can't tell there's an error because I don't have a way to check it. I'm going to say console log my fruit. And again, I like really descriptive error, so this is my fruit. It'll tell me. I restart it. I'm going to refresh this page. This is my fruit, undefined. Oh man, why is it undefined? Undefined is like my shadow in life. Okay, so how req.params works is this, what do you call it, property or method is actually going to be named the same thing as this, right? So if I just call it fruits, these match, let me restart, it automatically restarts my thing. I'm going to refresh this for food, banana, and here we go. This is my fruit, banana. Req.params grabbed this, which up here on my URL is banana, and I'm asking all my console log to just console log this req.params, and that's why it's coming on my server. Again, all your console logs on your server will be on your terminal. Now, just to take a further step back, because, you know, we're going to do this. What is req? Right, we're passing in this thing called req. So, you know, I'm going to actually say this is req, because it's going to be huge. So let's save this. And again, like nothing happens here because I'm having my console logs within my app.get. So I have to make this happen first. So I have to refresh this page, hit the route I want. Okay, this is my fruit banana worked. So let's scroll up. What is req? Oh man, it's a huge object with like a million properties. No, seriously, where's the top? Oh my gosh. Hold on, I think I'm almost there. I lied. Okay. You know what? Ah, here we go. Oh my God, it took up more than half my terminal. Okay, this is req. This is my console log. Okay, here it is. It is an incoming message. And it is one huge object, right? Curly's, now we know what that is with a property called readable state. And in that readable state, it has another property, which is another object, which has more key value pairs. But at least you know req is an object. That's why when we do .params, let's look for it. Where's .params? Is this thing in order? There's .parser, for example. If you do like .connection, that'll be there, req.connection. I'm looking for .params. I don't know, if I can't find it, at least you get the point. Oh man, it's here somewhere. Maybe this is in alphabetical order. Look, .method is a get. That's how it knows what it is. Here we go. Woo, look at that. We found the .params of this whole req object, of this whole request object, which is, again, all this information coming from your browser to your server. You're saying, I want req.params, right, which is an object. But in order to access the actual param, we know how to access objects, so that's why it's req.params dot whatever you name it. Here, I called it fruits. Does this make sense now? Yeah. Okay, don't worry if it doesn't. At least know, like, we're just dealing with objects, and that's all that this is. Req is a request object. Req.params is a method of the req object, and fruits is whatever we name it, and we access it by doing .fruits. That's why in class when we do ID, an ID here, you know, that works totally. This is way more descriptive for like a real app. But anyway, banana is still my req.params. This is my fruit, banana. Okay, that's req.params. I'm not going to get to req.query right now, but you can kind of understand where that may be from this object. Oh, and hey, look, here's req.body, right? We talked about body. What is req.body? Well, here you go. Right now it's empty. There's nothing in req.body. That's why we need body parser to help us get to the information in here. Cool. There looks like there's an app.route, which may, oh, and a path and all this stuff. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I like digging into things. But let's come back out of that hole. Any questions at this point? Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, oh my gosh. I feel like we understand Express so much more. It's not as scary as you think at all. My big thing is, again, since I've been debugging your code for a few days now, double check your variables, match, make sure you understand your error messages. If you don't know what you're dealing with, like, oh gosh, I want req.params ID, what is it? Just console log it, okay? I like declaring in a variable and I just put it here so that you're not dealing with like what is it in class, data.seeded, to-do.data, I don't know, index 12 dot whatever, oh my gosh, that's so big. Just save these guys in a variable, and you can access it. So like, again, what that would look like is something like var, new data, I don't know, equals all this stuff. If I just want to access like the description like we did earlier today, you'll just do new data dot description. Done. So clean, so easy. Now I know what piece of information I'm working with. JavaScript. This is normal JavaScript. Okay. Cool. Now let's move on to our views. Are you ready for views? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So Express is very smart. We say this because it has all our work done for us. We don't need to tell where to find it. It just knows. So if you're using Atom, you can, no, let me teach you the right way. Because I've seen a lot of issues with folders and files being in the wrong spot. And again, where these are located matters. Always check, does this match this? If not, do an ls. Are you even in the right place? If not, go find the right directory and make sure these are matching, okay? Okay, but we are in the right place, so I'm gonna ls, my files are here, and I'm going to make dir a views folder. We're gonna cd into that views again. Don't forget to cd in here. Okay, we're in the views folder here. So yep, nothing in here so far. So far we've been using handlebars, right? So our views, instead of like index.html, we're going to create, let's follow along what we've been doing, layout.hbs. Maybe you can consider it, it's equivalent to our index.html like we've been doing before. It's our main, excuse me, HTML page. And fun fact, why do we even use index.html? The browser, the first HTML file it'll look for is index.html. Just by default, your browser will do that. It's not because we just like calling it index.html, because it will look for the index.html. But anyway, we're going to touch a layout.hbs. Cool. Now, I just want to ask you guys, how good do you feel about views? So I don't know how deep to go into this. Come off mic if you're like, not good. Let's review it. Let's review it. Okay. No problem. So .hbs, again, .hbs, that means this is a handlebars syntax, right? .js is JavaScript file. This is a handlebars file. That's why we're not really using real HTML. But HTML totally works with handlebars, so that's great. And again, I'm not going to go to like the why exactly, but if you want to Google it, go for it. Like why? Like, what is handlebars? Why do we need 3 brackets? Because that's how they programmed it. All right, and this is where our body goes. And you know what? If you want some context, like, you know, here's our header one. Express is so fun. I'm only going to put this header one because you're going to notice this will show up in every single view. You probably notice, like, why is, man, I'm on a different page and it still says Express is so fun. Well, yep, because we had put it in our main view file. So I'm going to save this page. And if you're like, okay, let me go to my root. Oh, wait, I don't see it, though. That's because, yeah. Oh, actually, let me walk through these because I see you guys do this all the time. What happened? Why isn't it running? Did someone come off mic? I've seen, like, I think every one of you guys make this mistake.
Is it because the node mod needs to be done like on the root folder?
Yes, because if I press ls, I'm saying, hey, Nodemon, run my JavaScript. It's saying, there's no JavaScript. So exactly. So you want to go back to the main folder, and this is where it knows where to run it. So this is where it will run Nodemon. Good job. So we're back to normal. Again, don't panic. Just like understand why isn't it working. ls, cd, pwd. Use your knowledge to help you debug. Okay. All right. So we're at hello. We're not getting our thing though. No problem. And I think you know why. We don't have our views set up. So you know what? Let's build a view for here. And you know, I think I'll just be able to do create. We already did read because that's what all this is. Git. It just reads the stuff. Update, delete. I'd be happy to like do another tutorial tomorrow probably and build off of this if you guys want that. Okay, so we're gonna do a view now. I'm gonna delete res.sendHello. I don't really need that right now. So here's a new method we learned, response.render. So again, like if we were to console log, what is response? Response itself is a huge object and it has a method called .render and it just works. I'm gonna comment this out so we don't get a huge object. Okay, so res.render, it takes in 2 parameters, and this first parameter is important. This seems to be giving us a lot of issues too, right? Like, what goes in here? Why isn't it working? This is going to be checking what file your view is coming from. So we want it to display layout.hbs. Can I just do that? I think so. Let's try it. Give me a sec. Okay, let's try it out. Let's do like layout. You could put .hbs if you want, but it knows, it looks for this first part. Maybe you want to specify if you have like, I don't know, other extensions, I guess. I'm not really sure. But okay, oops, what am I doing? Okay, and then also takes in an object. First parameter, let me write this. I'll give you the view route, I guess, or directory. And the second parameter is always going to be an object. This is going to be our data to send to the front. Again, the client, browser, these are all the same words. Okay. For now, we don't have data, so that's fine. Let's see what this does. At least let's get our view to work, right? I always just try to work step by step. Okay, so I just have it render our layout page. It got a successful get route to root directory, so it was able to fire my render, and it did this. Why did it repeat it? I don't know. It's a good question. Seems buggy. It's probably because we usually don't access layout first. So let's build our next route then. Oh, you know what? Let me do this the proper way again. What I was going to do is just like create a new file, but then what ends up happening is like you can't really tell what it is, and then you work and work and work. You're like, Christine, why doesn't this work? Ah, it's in the wrong folder this whole time. So what we're going to do is cd views, and let's touch. This is where we'll do our index.hbs. Yes. Okie dokes. Cool. And the way Handlebars is set up is whatever you write in any of the files, if you have like 10 views for whatever reason, whatever you put here, it will get injected into here. So any HBS you write in here, it'll pretend like it just copy pasted it right in here, and it'll run it. So you know what? Let's try this out. Like how this works. Cool. And again, to test this, you can't just like refresh it, right? Because we don't have it linked up in our controller. These are your controllers. Yeah, get used to the terminology. These are your controllers. The controllers control the traffic coming in and tells the stuff what to do. So as soon as we get a GET request, it goes to the controller. Okay, we're here. Okay, you know what? Hey, views, I want you to render this, and it spits it back out to the front. So that's why it's called a controller. So instead of layout, let's actually view index. So I'm just going through this kind of like maybe too slow, but I really want to drive home the fact if your view's not showing, check the route. Check, are you actually showing what you wanted to show? If not, put in the right file name. That's all. Okay, I'm going to save this. It'll restart. Okay, yeah, makes sense, right? So again, the layout is kind of like the main HTML. This is the same thing as saying, instead of this. And that's kind of, we're just taking apart this huge HTML page and dispersing it into much smaller bite-sized pieces into its own little HBS file. And similarly, if you can understand that, since it seems like you guys understand views, that's the same thing we're doing with the controllers. Instead of having like 50,000 lines of controllers, instead we just separate it all into its own little folder. And that's what this is all about. That's why we say there's so many moving pieces, but if you understand conceptually like what is going on in general, then you can direct the traffic. And one final debugging thing, like if you can't get index, if this isn't working for you. Oh, also save. Man, I can't tell you how much time is lost by not saving the file. But pretend you're the computer again. I'll make my funny sounds. Okay, 3000, enter, boop, 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 boop. Okay, here we go. Hits the root route, res.render index. Okay, that means I have to go up here, click my index. Is this it? Okay, cool. Because that's literally what the computer does. It does nothing more than that. So again, if you're stuck, follow the steps. That's why I say, wait, what route are you on? Show me your code for the route. I never ask you, like, show me your whole JavaScript file. Show me this route. You're telling it exactly what to do, and that's how I'm able to pinpoint what it's actually doing. Okay, oh my gosh. So you know what? Any questions at this point? Does views make sense right now? What is handlebars? How come we have so many view files? Res.render makes sense versus res.send. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, res.send is kind of like my console log just to see if it even works. Because if I just see a blank page, I have no idea if it's working or if it's not. Okay, moving on to the last part. We're gonna go to this weird thing called data, right? Oh man, this is like the weird stuff. Like now let's incorporate JavaScript because right now we only have our server file, some views, that's it. Okay, no problem. So I'm going to shut down my server, make sure I'm in the right directory always. Just take your time, don't rush anything. I am in, so let's touch anything. I'm going to call this data.js. Again, just to be consistent. You can call it whatever you want, but I'll call it data. Cool, it shows up here, right? All right, so in this case, I am going to copy paste maybe some info for you guys. This is a temporary database, I would say. Database is not even the right word. It's simply an object. And I'm just copying this from our thing. Seeded to-dos, oh man, I hope. Data.seeded to-dos, oh god, I'm gonna end up running into that, that's fine. All I'm gonna put in my data is a array of 2 objects, that's it, and I'm gonna save it. Okay? Don't think anything more. Next week, once we have a database, this stuff is not going to be hard-coded. We're going to write a lot more gibberish to get that actual information. But for now, just understand that this is an object, and we're going to access this object. That's it. Don't get too hung up on this. We're going to move way beyond this, and we're going to work with real data in a real database. Okay. So we were talking about module.exports, and this is like another weird thing, like, right? Like, oh, another term, okay. Sure, yeah, I know what module.exports is, I think. In general, module.exports is this thing that comes with Express as well, right? Like set, use, get, these are all Express methods. Module.exports is another thing that comes with Express and makes it really awesome. Actually, not even Express. It comes with Node. That's why you see it on your homework. It's a Node thing. It makes transferring data. Maybe we could say this. Transfers data across files, right? Because it's like, if I reference a JavaScript here, how can I know? Well, you just send it. And the way you send it is through module.exports. But there's like a few parts to this. This is a 2-part process. So I'm giving you debugging tips. If you're like having issues with not getting your data, make sure the following is done. Okay, so since it's an object, we're gonna put our array, which is just our data, we're gonna put it in here. That's it. This is what you've been looking at this whole time. We just wrapped up our data in module.export so we can talk to other files on the seeded to-dos. You know, I don't even want seeded to-dos. Let's just say things. Yeah, better. Things. So at this point, we have our server and we have our data, and now it's just a matter of connecting these two for now, okay? And by doing that, it's another requirement. So this is where we will, I will call this data. You can call it anything. You can call it potato. I don't care, but data is the convention for now. Once you have more data sets, like one day we're going to be using with users. Maybe you're going to talk about location. Maybe you're going to have like, I don't know, favorite things. It could be anything. Just be consistent, again, with how you use this variable down here. So we're going to call it data, just to help you like piece together what we've been working over the I was going to say years. Nope, it's only been 5 days. Only 5 days. Okay, so we use the same syntax. Just like we require the libraries, we're going to require this file. And I'm going to explain the syntax so you don't get too hung up. Require ./data.js. Okay, let me explain what this does, because I don't want you to be copy pasting it without even understanding this. Because sometimes you'll see this, you know, maybe you'll see this. Like, what is this stuff? If you remember on day one, we talked about pathing, right? There's absolute and relative pathing. This is simply saying from server.js, go up a directory, express_reveal, and go back down to the file, this called data.js. So it goes up and goes back down to data.js because it's in the same directory. If this was like, and this is probably why the confusion came in later, if we had a controller file folder here, so I'm just going to demonstrate so you can understand. Oops, oh, I put that in the wrong thing. That's why you don't do it like this. See? If I put a controllers here and I put my data in here, for example, now I'd have to say, okay, this is not the right path. It would have to go up, up, then back down to controllers and backside in there. Okay, that's what the special syntax is. Right now, our data is outside. How can I do this? Oh, geez. Okay, here we go. Any questions about that? Does this make sense now? Like, why is it this? It's going to change later. So if you're like, my data isn't connecting, check your pathing. Is it in the right spot? Are you accessing it properly? This will change. And I wasn't paying attention this afternoon, but it probably did change, and that's why you got lost. And at this point, that's it. That's the two-step process. So the two-part process is save your data or object or array, whatever the data is, in module.exports. And 2 is require it on server.js for now, because we don't have controllers. If you have controllers, which I can try to talk about tomorrow if I have time, then we will be requiring it on whatever controller page we're working on. But for now, we're accessing it through this page. Thus, you have to require it on this page with this route. The last thing I'll do is display some information on the screen. And that will conclude today. But here we go. So let's go back here. In order to check, we got module exports here. Save, and then close it. Close this, close this. Save this as well. Data, okay? This is the variable we called. That's why when we see data, remember you're actually referring to whatever thing you put here, which is things, which itself is an array. Oh my gosh, I know. It's so complex, but as long as you can keep track, again, work from one piece and then build it out. It's okay. Okay. So here we go. We're going to remember the second parameter is an object, right? The data we want to send to the front. Okay, this is not going to work because data is not an object. Data is this here. And things is an array. Okay, so we have to change this syntax to reflect it. So data is going to be, oh man, you know what? Oh, that's going to be complex. Okay, you know what? This is a good brain teaser. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Data, data, data. This data is a new key I declared, okay? I can call this like goblins, I don't know. This data is referring to this. We're actually setting a key with the value of the whole object. So I'm going to keep it as data just to keep you guys confused and try to make it not so confusing. Now, this is nothing, it's no point if we put data when our actual view page, which we declared right here, doesn't have like any data on it, right? And that's where Handlebars comes in. There are other languages, or I'm sorry, libraries that you can display data on the page, but this is actually pretty cool. This is my first time working with it, and I like it. I think it's a great transition to Angular, which we'll learn in the next unit. But okay, let's say, okay, I want to access data. Let's see what this does. And at this point, like, I encourage you just play around with it. I think white space matters. So let's save it. Let's run our server. Server's working, cool. What route do I need to hit to access this? Okay, my root route. So let's refresh this. Okay, cool. So at least I know my get route worked, it all works. Okay, but wait a minute, what's this weird thing? Good question. What it is, it's just like data. Again, that data is referring to this. So I'm gonna change this to be like pumpkins. By the way, I'm super excited about Halloween. I should have made a Halloween app. I'm gonna change this to pumpkins. Reload the page. Okay, still same thing. Now do you see that that data, whatever, it had nothing to do with this data. I declared a variable, so if you're gonna call everything data, if you really want to, just be aware of what data actually is. Again, I would just be more descriptive. So you know, I'm gonna change this back to data. I'm gonna change this to data. Save. And you know, instead of data, I'm gonna say things. Right, I called it things on the other thing, so maybe it's better. So my data is actually gonna be the things. One more time, I should get the same error, but yep, good. That means all my variables and such are good. Again, just be consistent with what you name everything. So how do we actually access the data in things? Okay, I think you get the point now. Data dot, what is it? Things, oh God, I made things more complicating. It's fine. Data dot things. Why? Because this is basically saying data equals, no. At this point, things equals this because I declared it as things. Okay, so if it was things, it'd be things dot things. So let's try it out. Let's save this too. Things dot things. No, data. No, it's actually data. Data dot things. Okay, let's hope this works. Cool. Okay, so I got two things now. Right? It's basically these two things. And you guys know this now. To get to this stuff, it's the same thing. Left description. Maybe we want data.things. What do we call it? Urgent or something? Yeah. Save it. Refresh. Yep, totally fine. Again, you see how he built it up? I kind of want you to do that so you understand what you're working with instead of panicking, right? You're like, oh, I have no error messages. Like, I got my Git, it's a 200, which means, okay, my server is running. What's going on? Okay, so remember what things is. We saw it was an object, right? So this is where we come into each, right? Because it's an array of objects. So we have to actually access each one. I think if I were to like hard code it, I could be like, okay, maybe the first, I want the first things description and the first things urgency. Okay, it doesn't even like that syntax. Okay, that's fine. I'm not quite sure what the syntax is here, but I mean, theoretically with JavaScript, you understand where that's coming from, right? So anyway, that's why we were using the each thing, right? We're gonna loop through this stuff. So I think it was like each data, I think, we'll find out. Print data.things of description. And we have to end the loop, which I think is that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Cool, no error, which means our syntax is cool. So let's refresh the page. Yep, nothing shows up. That's no problem. Give me one sec. Okay. Since we have the for loop now, I think all we have to do is simply go. It'll automatically parse this info. I think if I'm right. I think in class this is how we've been doing it. Let me check. Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh, is it install? Just a matter of accessing this dumb data object. Okay, so my debugging process is the only possible thing is right here. Data is things, but you know what? Let's do things dot things. Again, things dot things would be, if this was things dot things, then we actually have this array. I'm purposely leaving you the same variable because you're gonna probably reference your older stuff. So as long as you can differentiate which data or which thing is referring to which data or which thing. So again, I'm just manipulating this. Let's see if this works. So now data is gonna be this stuff. Okay. So if data is all of that, then maybe all I need is this. Oh, I hope it works. Okay. Yay! Oh my gosh. Okay. Yep. So I mean, like even me, I can't get everything right the first time, but as long as I know what I'm working with, just work at your own pace. And you know, the formatting, sure. That's why then, like the beauty of Handlebars is we can add cool HTML stuff to it to give it structure, right? I think that's what you guys are doing. I don't know. Whatever. This is just extra stuff. As long as you understand how data gets to the page. Actually, yeah, are there any questions at this point? So we got views to work and we got information or data to display on the page. Does this make sense? Do you want me to clarify anything? Because basically this is it for today. So I'm just going to finish up my HTML. You can make this any way you want, right? If you want a list, cool, go for it. And there you go, I get my list. Yeah. So I think the big tricky part is this whole data object. And again, tomorrow I will go through new, update, delete, maybe in controllers if I can. But anyway, what I was saying is this stuff. Make sure you understand what object you're passing. It has to be an object. You can't just put in data. You have to wrap it in an object. Make sure whatever key you're calling it here, this key is what's actually displaying here. And then these are the properties of that data. That's all that is. Right? So if I had like more than description urgent, had like, I don't know, 20 other things, you just simply access it by putting it in these curlies and it'll show up. Cool. So that concludes today. And, oh, look at me. I look wonderful.
Thank you so much. That was very